A 47-year-old man has appeared at the Pretoria Magistrate's Court after being arrested on a charge of attempted murder after allegedly transmitting HIV to his 38-year-old girlfriend. According to the National Prosecuting Authority regional spokesperson, Lumka Mahanjana, it is alleged that the accused and the complainant were in a relationship between October 2025 and June 2026. During this period, the accused allegedly misrepresented his HIV status to the complainant, informing her that he was HIV negative. Well, for analysis on this, we're joined by medical legal risk specialist Dr. Makuluma. Perhaps an important fact to add to this information matrix, Dr. Makuluma, is that the young lady in question had discovered ARVs in the possession of the man who she accuses of having infected her, and that was her basis for then once again confronting him on whether or not he was HIV positive. What do we have at all, any sort of jurisprudence and or laws pertaining to disclosure in South Africa? Dr. Makuluma, can you hear me?
Couldn't hear yours. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. Please do go ahead.
I'm just saying good evening and good evening to your viewers.
Oh,
I think it is an important point.
I'm assuming you didn't hear my question, just for clarity on that?
I didn't hear you.
Okay, let me repeat the question. Do we in South Africa have laws and or case law on whether or not there is an obligation of disclosure for parties and people who are at least HIV positive, who know their status?
Not really, but I would not like us to go into the detail of a currently going case. For one reason, that reason is that that's a law process that is taking place. I think the case itself talks more than the law that is governing the current case. It's difficult to comment on a case that is ongoing, that is relatively very new. Anything and everything that we know currently is based on...
Yeah, my question is a more general question outside the specifics of this case. In a general sense, what does the law say, if anything at all, around disclosure?
Disclosure is an important aspect, but you are not obliged to disclose. However, you are not supposed not to disclose and intend or not intend but hurt someone else. Therefore, you need to disclose, but there's no obligation for anybody to disclose unless there is a legal obligation to disclose. But at the moment, there's no legal obligation to disclose.
Can any culpability be derived?
You can look at it also this way. Cases like these, they would include law, medicine, and ethics. From an ethical point of view, it is an obligation for a person from an ethical point of view. But when we talk ethics, we should understand that we've got professional ethics and you've got morals. Therefore, from an ethical point of view, you may want to disclose, and it is important for the person to disclose.
Yeah. Can any sort of liability and or culpability derive from someone who wittingly infected another party?
Look, that's a very legal question, and I'm not going to get into the detail because there is precedent. This has happened before. That is why lawyers at the moment are busy, use the charge that they've used in this case. But this is not just a case of, this is an important aspect. This is not just a legal case, but it is also a public health case. Because in a country like ours, that has got a huge number of people, more than 9 million people who are HIV positive, it's important that public health and law come together to work and understand the unintended consequences of charging people for murder, and what would that happen? There's nothing wrong with it from a legal point of view. Law must do law. Law is not going to change. But unintended consequences of a person deliberately, as the allegation is in the case, infecting someone else, it has got a huge implication when the law criminalizes that act. And when the law criminalizes that act in saying that was attempted murder, That's a public health issue that needs to be debated between the two professions or the two sectors, which is health and law.
Yeah, one would imagine that it would do a great deal of reversal to the years of campaigning that has been done to inform the public that HIV is not a death sentence, that you can still live a fully healthy and meaningful life even if you are HIV positive. And of course, you can even become undetectable. And that has been the public health messaging for the better part of the last 15 years, or perhaps even 20 years, as far back as, the medical science on the combat against HIV has developed the sort of drugs that are currently in use, ARVs and or other drugs that are available on the market. Would a case like this, and with a charge like this, attempted murder, undo those years of lobbying and years of public health education?
I think it is important to understand that law operates in a different way, or in a certain way, in a legal way. And we should not be really saying that law should not operate in its own ways. What is more important is, what are the unintended consequences? What is it that we could do between ourselves as the different professions, that is the health on the side and legal on the other side? Remember, law requires people to be accountable for their actions. And the focus is on accountability. And they will use the processes, the procedures that are relevant in the determination of the accountability.
Yeah.
We cannot therefore start talking about that. However, the unintended consequences is exactly what you are saying. That with more than 9 million people who are HIV positive in the country, one of the countries in the world that has got very high prevalence of HIV. We've got a number of people that are unknown who are HIV positive. It may lead to people being afraid of actually testing.
Okay, we're going to have
it may lead to people saying,
yeah,
if I test, what's going to happen to me? Although from a public health point of view, this is very important in terms of the debates that have to go out to the public, that would say, even if that is the case, it doesn't translate to what is happening on the ground.
Yeah.
And on the ground is you get HIV positive, and once you have got treatment, you live with HIV treatment on a chronic basis. That is fine. As long as that message comes out very clear, then that is fine.
Yeah. Dr. Makuluma, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. That's medical legal risk specialist, Dr. Lumka Mahanjana.